I mean, technically, I would say this is probably tech news. The only reason I want to bring it up before you start is because it's from the information, as you know. We, paywall and everything. So I could just read the top part of it, and so I thought that this would be very interesting to everybody. It's about Jack Ma, if you don't mind, if I
Okay.
can. Okay, so the title is Jack Ma's investment firm struggles to raise money in China. Jack Ma, China's most iconic entrepreneur, whose swift fall from grace from with government authorities. We all know that captivated the country. We all know the background. So he's got this company called Young Feng. I want to pronounce it correctly. YUNFENG, Young Feng Capital, a private equity firm Ma co-founded in 2010, is having difficulty raising capital from domestic investors concerned about political risk of backing him, raising questions about his long-term viability, according to three people briefed by the firm's managers and its existing investors. Now, here's where there's a hypocrisy in this story, by the way. It says Wan Feng is one of the country's most important tech-focused investors with more than $10 billion in assets under management. So I guess maybe that's money that they raised previously, because it's hard for me to like reconcile. You've got $10 billion under management, but you're having trouble raising money. I never was able to raise $10 billion for my hedge fund. That's for sure. So I don't understand that concept. It said its previously unreported struggles can aid rival firms such as Sequoia's Capital, China's affiliate, their affiliate, Sequoia's Chinese affiliate, Hill House Capital, and Source Code Capital, if domestic tech investments recover from a recent downturn. And that's as much as I can read about the story because of the paywall. But I thought that would be of interest. Thanks.
Yep. Very cool.
There's some backstory about Jack Ma and his fall that we don't really know because he got taken out fairly quickly. And, if I were him, I wouldn't be living in China.
He got a
Politics.
royal invitation to visit Beijing, and then we didn't hear from him for a few months.
Politics.
Yeah, exactly.
He belongs to the wrong, a different clique.
Yeah, he doesn't belong to Xi's pact.
He belongs to the Shanghai clique.
Okay.
And a couple of other non-tech news. Politically, the Iran's uprising still ongoing, the protests ongoing against the regime. And in Ukraine, the bridge that was blasted between Ukraine and Crimea, blocking Russian supplies. In response and retaliation, Ukraine was bombed and attacked by Russia in a region of Oblast, causing a lot of, killing and damage there.
Oh, Tyler, you mentioned that the Iranian policemen have joined the protesters, right?
Yeah, there was some footage that appears to show some of the state police joining the protesters, and that's the magical moment. That's the tipping point. That's when you know you've got a real revolution on your hands, and shit's going to get very real. And it's that's it. It's like who has the army and on their side. The army has such a huge, and that's why the loyalty of the army is such a huge issue. And it's the will the is the army sworn to who? What are they precisely? Are they sworn to defend or protect? And it's partly why Thailand has so many coups, by the way, on that topic. But military coups, but because they were loyal to the king, not the government. And so the Iranian uh, army, I don't know what the military is sworn to, but I do know, as you've heard me say many times, many of my very, very, very closest friends are strangely, disproportionately Persian. I I don't know why that is, except that we just get along famously. But the I was always confused how these people that I am so close with and kind of know their personality, you know, it just seemed like it was a matter of time before something would would trigger them to rise up against the situation that they've been in since the revolution. And it appears that's what's in fact happening right now, is that Iran, the Iranians are standing up now, and they're going to overthrow their government. And like I say, it was only a matter of time. And God bless them. And I tweeted, I don't tweet that often, but I did tweet out exactly this. And I wish them the best. I dream, I've been dreaming of this, that someday Iran would have a change of government and be a Western,
Liberated.
yeah, liberated and back to its former glory, where it was very progressive and culturally significant, and
More
and
secular, kind of how,
just part of
you
the
know,
global ecosystem,
yeah,
and and not to imply that it would be Western friendly necessarily, but just more on and able to engage however it makes sense, for however they decide they want to, and because I'm confident that uh, it'll be a net benefit for the world if they can get a true democracy going on there. I think it'd be fantastic, and I say that in the best intentions of and hope for everybody there. And anyway, and more importantly, I hope that these protesters in Iran, um, the courage that they're showing, because it's well known that you're going to get dealt with uh, terminally for resisting. They're risking, they're putting their lives on the line for this, and I really admire their courage, and I hope that their courage is an inspiration to particularly the Russians at this time, because similarly, it's just unfortunately it's I don't know that the Russians have them in it to do with what's happening in Iran, and I wish they did. I wish they did have it in them, because that would solve one of the world's biggest problems right now. And everyone knows what happened in Tiananmen Square when the Chinese tried to do it, and the government there just is ruthless on another level when they need to be. But you can't. It, let's see what happens if Iran shifts, and if that does inspire the Russians to do something similar. Who knows? That could inspire the Chinese to do something similar. Although I doubt it. I feel like a lot of Chinese people are actually quite happy with how China works, and that's their prerogative. But anyway,
Hey,
interesting time. Yeah,
no, no, I thought you were done because I wanted to bring up something else that you might be interested in. Are you done? I don't want to interrupt you for
yeah.
whatever
No,
you're
it's
talking.
I'm just wanting to reflect on, it's amazing how quickly the world could be changing at this time. But as just you went over it kind of quickly here, but clearly Putin has retaliated for the blowing up of the bridge in Crimea, and he just recently bombed multiple cities, including Kiev, quite significantly. So go ahead.
yeah, and that's what I wanted to bring up this briefly here because this is tech news, but again, it's the testament of what happens when the people takes courage against an oppressive regime, like what people are doing in Iran and Russia. By contrast, the Russian people, I'm not sure whether they have it in them, or even if they have it in them, the way they are going to be dealt with, the response in retaliation is so far extreme that the fear is at another level. I think that's the difference here.
Hey, hi,
What's up, Tim?
Amil. You're in Tehran, right? You was writing something over the back channel. You want to share with us on stage?
Yeah, hi. I don't know whether my sound quality is okay or not because the internet is so slow in the past week. But the scene that Tyler mentioned was uh, 2 nights ago in Tehran, a night ago, depending on your time zone. It was few cops walking with people. not necessarily supporting them because they were outnumbered by people, and haven't yet we haven't seen any sign of military or armed forces siding with people. Uh, the Saturday was a big day because it was calling for it was many callings from different cities to people come out, and there were cases, very violent cases in Sanandaj, is a city near the hometown of Mahsa Amini. There was a case of a person getting shot in the head because he was in his car driving and hitting the horn, because that's another form of protest people are using in the past 20 days. They are just creating traffic and hitting the horns. And the police used sort of the lethal ammunition and shot that person directly in the head. There were cases of killing. The most horrible one is for a 16-year-old girl who went missing for almost 8 days, and then they found her body with clear signs of getting hit in the head and having bruises and autopsy marks, which meant that whatever they did to her, they had to sort of get rid of some of her organs to cover up everything. And even after they gave the body to her family and they had the funeral, uh, and the police went and ripped the body out of the grave and moved it to a smaller village to to put it there in the ground and maybe get less attention from people or media because they put it in a more remote place. So that I don't want to go long, but it's just that we have passed these past 20 days were very brutal. But again, I hope this goes to a good place because both for Russia and for Afghanistan, a good ending for Iran could mean high morale for Russians, for Afghans against Taliban, and just let's hope that the bloodshed ends and it has a good outcome for the region, not just Iran. Thanks.
Yeah,
I'm so glad to see you. We had many conversation in the Ukraine room. Amir have been always very supportive of people in Ukraine and had contributed really positively in terms of his, insights through Afghanistan, Iran, and that region. And I'm glad that you are safe. Just be safe, Amir, and thank you for sharing. Nice to see you.
so Tyler, Cheryl just pinned. I gave it to her.
Yeah,
So it was
and
already
by
in
the
my.
way, does California has bullet train? I didn't know that.
No, it doesn't. So this is the story. So it doesn't have a bullet train, and it will never have a bullet train. That's the story.
You got that
So
right.
so this is from Tyler's favorite newspaper, the New York Times. They did an in-depth story over the weekend. 14 years ago, California issued a bond, and they didn't even mention the amount of the bond. Okay, but because I don't think the original project cost is the amount of the bond. The amount of the bond is probably lower than that. But 14 years ago, this thing was going to cost $33 billion. It was supposed to be a bullet train from San Francisco to L.A.
Yep.
Okay, and the article goes into all the political delays and the wrangling and not even lawsuits, by the way, because usually there's lawsuits that delay everything. This is just politics about rerouting it through the Inland Empire, or the Antelope Valley, actually, not the Inland Empire, but rerouting it because one of the county supervisors wanted it to go through the Antelope Valley. So those of you who know Southern California, so they keep delaying it. They kept getting delayed. So it's 14 years later. The cost ballooned from $33 billion to $114 billion. And obviously, even the governor now is getting sticker shock, and they're probably not going to ever spend the money, and it's never going to get built. And one of the things I should point out in the article, there's somebody who's mentioned in the article that most people won't know, but I actually know who he is. A guy named Michael Tenenbaum, who was a former, he used to run the Los Angeles office for Bear Stearns, an investment banker. I mean, great reputation. Okay. And he's quoted in the article. I mean, he's very humble about this. I think he's more. I think he's being too hard on himself. That he eventually he walked away from it. But he said he didn't. He actually he's quoted as saying, maybe I wasn't smart enough to realize this couldn't get done. And he's a pretty smart guy, and it could have gotten done, possibly, if they didn't have, if they were just dysfunctional. And that was, the way I put the article in my own Twitter account, that basically they're dysfunctional. So 14 years later, you've got something that's gone from 33 billion to 115 billion, that was supposed to be a bullet train, and now it's not going to be built. Now they're saying, maybe we overshot. Maybe we should have just tried to build one from LA to San Diego first, as opposed from San Francisco to LA. So I just put that article. I think it's interesting reading, and it obviously goes to the issue of getting people out of cars, and why that's going to be so difficult if you can't do this. And as much as we complain about China, China has trains. When China wants to build something, it gets built. Okay, unlike here. And I'm done speaking.
Well, what is also very interesting about this too is it's supposed to have three legs. One from San Francisco to, let's just say, northern part of the valley or north central of the valley. Then from the valley down to Bakersfield-ish, which is through the valley, and then from the bottom of the valley into SoCal. Guess what link they started building the most first?
The one in the Central Valley, I think, right?
Dumb
Yeah,
as shit.
Sacramento, Bakersfield.
Dumb as shit. It would have been better for them to do people commute in from the North Valley into San Fran. They commute in from the South Valley to LA. It would have been better for them to work on any one of those legs. And if those legs didn't work, you don't need the center. They worked on the fucking center where there's virtually nobody. This is waste and it's bullet stupidity.
I just want to bring something about Ken's about saying that China can do this kind of thing in a snap. But if your home is on this line, I mean on the route of this bullet chain, and your home is gonna be gone over a week. So I think it's the you can say it's the advantage, also the disadvantage of the democracy versus autocracy. So yeah, that's the result of your policy on the mass transportation. So you solve the result as well, but at the same time you have to think about, if it's not done this way, what else would you have sacrificed?
Yeah,
Well,
well,
BB, real quick, BB, even in the U.S. where we tout democracy, and my family from East Coast to West Coast have had to deal with this, and I've lived in a number of places where we had thriving small business, medium-sized business in historically black neighborhoods. In a democracy, almost every fucking damn one of them, a highway or something was run through it. And from Nashville to different places in the U.S., it destroyed the independence of certain neighborhoods. So even in democracy, they move, shift, and destroy places. So democracy is not perfect.
Yes, of course, but you, at this, in the end, you might still have your life to speak. That's a something I think that is very different as well. And by the way, isn't this
Rightly said.
news was not brought up? It's about 1 week ago. That the Chinese has tried to establish some police station overseas in Canada, in America as well. It's disguised under some like the local union, or even they have this address registered at some restaurant. So right
Or
now, I think,
cultural center, culture center,
yeah,
I think is
a
the other one.
culture center as well. So now even those Chinese who think they don't agree with the this this ruling policy in China, they try to go overseas, but right now they have these stations to watch over them, and sometimes they even use the family in China, back in mainland China, to force them to do things. What kind of things you can imagine, but yeah, it is right now. I think this is something um, the American, like the officials should put some eyes on it.
And Tyler, I know you've been gone from California for a long time, but this past year, they finally gave up on the extension of the 710 freeway that was, planned for, I don't know, 20 years, that some people in Pasadena objected to. Just to BB's point, that, I mean, about whether it's good or bad that you stop things, but there were some people in Pasadena who didn't want this freeway extension, and they managed to stop it. I mean, they fought it for 20 something years, and you know, you,
Again,
you yeah.
may I chip in here? Yeah, the main reason I didn't read the article, but the main reason why the bullet train didn't build because I'm not sure in the article mentions the French company left the project. They've been trying to get it done soon because the longer delay, the higher the cost gonna be. The reason being is because political problems, right? Within here,
Oh
where
yeah,
to
yeah, and they
move.
mentioned that in the article, by the way, Colin. They mention it, and they mentioned
Yeah, and
they went to
the
Morocco, and they built a train over there because it was easier to
yeah,
get to
yeah.
Morocco.
As you know, I have friends that are in the construction business. The environmental impact study take years. You know that, and now the lower part of the section that the build along the coast. Guess what? We have the train that are down here in San Diego. It's actually degrading. They try to firm it up. The land actually sliding right now. So where they gonna move, right? And that's a resistance right now on the lower coast. A lot of people here. It's actually powerful people pushing. It's the whole train maybe shift all the way to the east side, but not gonna happen. So I think political will is a problem, but also environmental impact is another problem. So we got to solve. And the land in California, as you know, that has been increased two, three folds the last few years. So the longer delay, the problem going to be, and the government. This is the government-run program, so you know how to go. So this is
No,
from
no, no. That was my point about like that China doesn't have these problems. I mean, there's an efficiency in autocracy. They get their bullet trains, built. They don't get stopped by lawsuits, environmental impact statements, or anything else. I mean,
Yeah,
so,
they don't care about the environment or people and anybody's life getting affected
Why do
negatively.
you
They just
say
build
that?
trains. So
Japan has
Chinese.
the first and most successful bullet train, right? And Japan is a democracy, and Japan is very well aware of environment too. So I don't think it should be generalized. I don't
They
think
are
so.
not talking about Japan here. They are trying to, Ken's comment exactly, are trying to make a point that autocracy in China is able to achieve things that we are not able to achieve here. That is the comment. And they don't have these quote unquote problems of taking in account the environmental impact or the impact on human lives, and they just get things done expeditiously. I find this statement kind of concerning because in America we also get things done quite, on a level which is not achieved by other countries.
But Aaron, do you have data to back your claim?
Yes, sure. Does Ken have data, Cheryl? Did you ask him for any
No,
data?
no,
well, I
because
could
you
I
I
say
could
can give
tell
a
you
that.
data point.
I could tell you what I'm still waiting for the West Side Highway to be built. I was at the dedication ceremony with President Reagan 40 years ago, where the federal government offered to pay 90% of the money, to give them 90% of the money to New York to build the West Side Highway. And those of you who know Manhattan remember the West Side Highway fell down. Whatever.
We're
Okay,
still
Yep,
waiting.
they're
yep.
still
Still
waiting.
waiting.
Okay, because of lawsuits about a snail or some little fish in the Hudson River. This is where it is. They delayed, and finally the federal government was nice enough and said, we won't give you all the money. We'll give you part of the money if you want to use it for the subways. And of course, that money goes right down the drain because no matter how much money you throw in the subways, the MTA manages to waste it. But that would have created a lot of jobs. We would have had the West Side Highway. 40 years ago, I went to the ceremony with the president and the mayor, and because I was working for the New York City Council, that's how I got into that, by the way. Okay, and never got built because of the fact that because it's so hard to build anything
So
here.
snail and fish is like the environmental factor, right?
Yeah, the environmental felt, and
Okay.
yeah, so some that wouldn't make a difference. It's like, I mean, we can't stop everything for every little single whatever insect. I mean, I
A
mean,
spider?
Uh,
A spider?
Ken,
sorry.
Maybe?
what about what about the West Side Highway when they wanted to build the stadium? Remember they were going to do a whole big production of building a stadium on the West Side Highway. They were going to move one of the stadiums there. Do you remember that
Oh, I
proposal?
barely, I don't really remember that anymore. I just remember they were going to build the highway, and the federal government was going to pay 90% of it, which is really generous. I mean, and everybody was for it. We didn't even have a political dispute among Democrat and Republican politicians, meaning Reagan was a Republican, the governor was a Democrat, the mayor was a Democrat, and everybody wanted it. They were all there. And it was some environmental activist who managed to, like, on her own, through lawsuits, stop an entire project that
Hmm.
the president of the
So,
United States
so there
wanted,
must
the
be
governor
some
of New York
reason.
wanted, and the mayor of New York wanted.
There must be some reason in there. Can please, try to uh, perhaps look into it. What was the reason? Plus, let's move into future. There are many different other creative solutions here. I just read a couple of articles about aviation turning into electric based plane and electric based other solutions. Hydrogen as fuel a source to solve the energy problem and transportation problems. So let's look into future the technologies that are being employed in United States to solve these issues. We don't have to stick in past and enforce those solutions that were not workable anyway and not good for our environment.
Yeah, I think the Boring Company was an example of that, right? The Boring Company, there's not a lot of
Funny.
regulation underground, and if you can pull it off, then that's a great example. But in
Exactly.
terms of efficiency, I think SpaceX has showed even China and Russia that they can do it for cheaper and better. So some things capitalism can do better if it's privatized in the right way. And what that means is obviously contentious, but I think it's a
Yes,
great example.
Right, but the
absolutely.
majority of citizens are not going to space. The majority of citizens are getting on trains that connect communities
Exactly.
amongst the population. Rail has been a great advantage for societies historically over the ages. It's a very important part of Xi Jinping's strategy, the high-speed rail network.
Yeah, but there was also the other strategy of if you put it out for bid and you pay accelerator bonuses for getting stuff done, and if you're not tied to having a union do that, and the reason why I say that is, those of you that have gone through New Jersey, the Route 9 bridge several years ago when Christie was still in office, and that had to be replaced, it went out as a contract. They built the bridge in 9 months, okay, because the bridge was deteriorating so much, and they paid an accelerator bonus on it. They had 2 years to do it, and they did it in 9 months. And I think, when you take that business side of things and apply it to politics, it pushes people to move faster. If there's more money to be made by doing it faster and proper, they do it.
Absolutely, and this is something that happened in China. It used to be outside companies that would come in and build their railway system. Now it's domestic companies that are kind of leading the way in that high-speed railway infrastructure.
Please try living in China for a few months and years and then decide if you want to be treated
Have you
like
tried,
that.
Iram? Have you tried?
Oh, I'm often vocal about it on this app, and
Yeah. But Iram,
my
have you tried? But
profile's all full of it there.
I'm just saying, right? Bullet train works in Japan, Taiwan, China, and even Europe, right? I'm really hoping one day US will have it. Very seriously.
Okay.
Ditto.
might be more environmentally friendly than a bunch of electric vehicles.
And airplanes.
Okay, I think it's time for the tech news.
But
Uh,
by the way, if you just want some quick figures on that, an aeroplane is about as efficient as they're ever going to get. They can't only go a few, but they're optimized to hell. And there's no way that a plane flying through air can get more than a few percent more efficient. I can provide the receipts on the chat if you want. An aeroplane is about the same as an electric car with a couple. A good aeroplane is about the same as an electric car with a couple of people in it per mile per person. So electric cars and planes are roughly the same. And I don't have the figures for trains, but I suspect they are more efficient than either. But I don't know. I'd have to check that.
Yes, exactly.
okay, so time for the air horn. If I can find it. Here we go. Monday, October 10th. Wall Street Journal says some iPhone 14 users say the crash detection feature have triggered false alarms and called 911 during roller coaster rides or after a phone drop while driving. Apple's crash detection on the iPhone 14 and new Apple Watch models can alert 911 and emergency contacts in the event of a collision. And so there's one particular roller coaster, I don't know exactly where, that is routinely calling 911 on behalf of the iPhone user or owner and saying that this person was just in a car accident and is not responding because
This is actually hilarious.
the speed of the roller coaster and the incredibly abrupt stop of the roller coaster perfectly simulates being in a car crash. And so, why shouldn't the device call 911? Because it thinks you were just in a car crash. I guess the only way it could tell that you weren't is because of the rapid changes of elevation, which would be more than what a normal car crash would do.
Well, a number of carnivals have these jerking, a
Right.
number of these where you kind of drop, you stop, you drop, you stop, you drop, you stop, you drop, you stop. So that's going to be interesting to see how they fix this thing, or what do they do, or maybe a number of people have to remember to disable it.
Well, normally, like at Universal and stuff, when you go to those big, huge roller coaster, they want your phones to be in the locker, stored in the locker, and not on the roller coaster itself. So people shouldn't be taking their phones there anyway.
I
Well,
give it about a year before they start taking those features in the iPhones and using them as exploits, and then all of a sudden you'll see whole new kinds of weirdness going on.
they can also geofence it so that people at that theme park, by default, uh, you know, don't get called, don't have 911.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Easy patch as they find the hotspots like that. It does show that the model is not quite as it's obviously quite sensitive and giving a lot of false positives because it was supposed to be using the sounds and a whole bunch of other factors as well. So they can also keep training the model. So there's a couple of solutions: geofencing, further data, and training. It's a glitch, temporary glitch. They'll sort
In
it.
fairness, the screams probably are not so different from being in a car accident. Next up, Intel confirms its proprietary UEFI code appears to have been leaked by a third party. Leaked to 4chan and GitHub, but that's a problem. Next is Washington Post, a look at the history of online content moderation, which has become a top culture war issue since the 2016 election and is the subject of multiple court cases. Next, at least two TwitchCon attendees say they were severely injured, one with a broken back after using Lenovo and Intel's foam pit scattered over bare concrete. At least two attendees say they were severely injured. Okay. Okay. Um, Not really tech per se. Next is Bloomberg says that they have sources that Istanbul-based delivery startup Getter is in advanced talks to acquire Berlin-based Gorillas. In a cash and equity deal, Getter raised 768 million dollars in March. A Dutch court says tracking a remote worker via webcam is an unreasonable intrusion, awarding the worker €75,000 after his U.S. employer fired him for having his webcam off. Hmm.
Tyler, that's become a huge thing over here. I know people that will not hire you if you don't have a webcam on. And then
Right.
there's tons of meetings I go into that they kind of want those webcams on. And some of us are just bums and working t-shirts, and maybe we're wearing something offensive that we don't want to put on.
So what if the I mean, we should open this article and find out who the U.S. employer is. Can an employee agreement say that you'll be required to be on camera to prove that you're actually working or present or whatever? And
Laws are
then,
different in every country. That's where it gets interesting. Like, for instance, the one law I thought that was kind of epic, okay? So when you talk about time off, okay, depending on where you are in which state in the U.S. it matters, and then around the world, as to how much time you're actually allowed off. Because of HR perspectives, because there's some states that say they have to pay you if you don't take your days off, okay, in other parts of the world. That's why if you noticed over COVID, they would give you that unlimited. They started the unlimited days off or at will, and that's because then they would never have to pay you. And if you ever do things like that, that's why a lot of those laws. I wish like Jennifer was in here for a lot of these employment laws. But then tracking them globally is also a whole other perspective.
well, it sounds like the American companies will not be hiring in the Netherlands for remote workers. I think they'll only hire people in,
Tyler,
yeah.
it's a very interesting case because there's one country for sure that values its privacy in Europe, and it is Holland. And I'm not surprised that that person won because there's a lot of people that work from home and they're remote. And I just think in some ways it's also quite intrusive because you know it expect certain jobs you can't be in front of your computer like 8 hours. Do you see what I'm saying? Just doesn't even make human sense. Like if you need to get up and go to the bathroom, or if you need to get up and go to lunch, if you need to get up and stretch like every 45 minutes, which is really why sitting is becoming the new smoking, because it's like impossible to just sit for 3-4 hours. I mean, people just get sick that way. Especially, I mean, I'm a developer. I could see that. I see the difference when I was constantly in front of a computer sitting trying to code and trying to solve problems versus stepping away from the computer a few times and coming back, and the productivity was actually better on the latter, not on the first one. So I'm not surprised they won that case here because I think I know a number of Dutch that would fight, that would totally be on this person's side because they would see that as an infringement of privacy.
I don't know
So
what's wrong with the way they're defining roles and KPIs if they're that worried. I mean, if the 50 odd people, I don't quite know how many people work for me, but 50 something, 40 to 60 people, I have no clue. We never even dream of looking at. We don't need to care about when they're working. You just look at the output, right? You look, are they doing what you've asked them to do? I don't see why we need to worry about whether they're sat at their computer. I don't care how they get it done.
You're
So, to Ben's point, I just wanted to make one comment of something I saw here. So, I find this fascinating. My boyfriend works in sales, and I'm not going to name drop the company, but it's a huge, huge company in the States. And he was told because the sales team's numbers were down, they had to sit with their cameras on all day long so they could see me working, him working, everything. And he agreed to it at the time, but let's just say he's not there anymore. But there are companies that are making that. But can you imagine all day long they want your camera on? It's crazy.
Amanda, is that at the manager level? Because I have seen micromanagers like that. And then to Ben's point, I mean, it should be kindly defined because I could tell you right now, our best guys are in the Netherlands, so they would never force that on them.
And people who are looking after their health, look into standing desks because
Thanks, Iram. I was waiting for that, Iram, because I will always count on Iram to give that health update, which is so true. Have a standing desk is so important. But to the young lady that said that, maybe there's just modern day voyeurism. I'm sorry, but sometimes there may be someone that's just like got. I'm Ben. I love what you shared as well, because whoever has that kind of time to watch all those webcams, maybe they need to be thinking about cybersecurity and actually watching their knock and watching their cameras where things are actually happening. I think that makes more sense.
You,
Well,
you,
I don't think there's anybody sitting there staring at the webcams. They have software that monitors that people are there a certain percentage of time.
yeah, and
Most of this is done in call centers, just so you know, and it is fairly common.
yeah, it's well, what they use user behavior analytics to monitor what people are doing. But I've written a couple of scripts to make it look like I'm doing something all the time. The bigger problem with having the camera on all the time, since Amy brought up cybersecurity, a lot of us are, love our whiteboards. Okay. Now, does that mean we have to go and make sure the whiteboard's not in view? Because guess what? Well, we're in the webcam world, we do it and we draw it out on those important meetings. Now, what happens when we're pivoting back and forth and that's on? I always keep mine on blur because this way there's nothing there. But guess what? There's always something sensitive to be caught from that. And I always tell everybody from a privacy perspective, privacy's gone. If you're showing something, say, yeah, don't do this, don't do that. Somebody is always screenshotting what is going on, okay? Because there's always something interesting, that's around there. And this is me working on the red team side. Taking off my sales hat, putting on my red team side is my job is to break into your freaking company. I'm going to look for any piece of little intelligence that you leave out, whether it's on a Zoom call, whether it's wherever. Because the only advantage of having a camera on, is when there's new people and you're trying to see who they are, because that was actually a red team role. I told everybody, I'm like, during COVID, nobody's bothered to check and see who the new people are. So when we actually have to go back in the office, I can role play as that new person and literally sit in the meeting, record everything, and have access to everything and compromise everything. And people don't think about that. And I guess maybe I'm too much into cybersecurity and people don't think the way I do.
People don't think that way because you're doing such a good job.
Okay, next up, TSMC reports Q3 revenues rose 48% year over year. German media reports the government plans to dismiss cybersecurity chief over possible contacts with Russian security services. The interior minister wants to dismiss the country's cybersecurity chief due to possible contacts with people involved in in what? Involved with Russian security services. Interesting. Next up, an interview with YouTuber Christopher Slayton, aka Chris DeCow, on building the entire observable universe in Minecraft over nearly 2 months. Samsung announces first third-party TV makers to ship with its Linux-based operating system in Europe and Australia. Global PC shipments declined 15% year over year. A look at efforts in the EU, US to make tech and streaming companies pay telecom operators for investments that the operators are making in their networks. Well, yeah, you're the one collecting the money for all of that network access. Financial Times has a piece titled How Virtual Influencers, that means not human, Virtual influencers are gaining popularity in China amid a celebrity crackdown. Oh, that's interesting. Research predicts the industry will go from about a billion to about 7 billion in the next 3 years. 7x in 3 years, not bad. And they're probably right, especially in China, where these uh, ageless and scandal-proof Chinese virtual influencers can be programmed with very strict guidelines by the state and have no qualms at all about, regurgitating, the official narratives. That's really interesting.
Well,
Ageless
that
and
bit.
yeah,
Oh, sorry. No, finish this story, buddy.
scandal-proof bit makes them also incredibly interesting for advertisers. They do turn out to be that way, which I guess in some sense they will be. Although potentially they could be hacked in ways that humans cannot be. What happens when you hack a virtual influencer and make a video about them and put that out? That's even worse than what could ever happen with a human. I mean, it's almost as bad as Mel Gibson, going off the rails and spouting crazy nonsense about Jews or whatever. But I guess they both have equally fringe, risks.
If you combine virtual influencers controlled by the state with social credit systems, you have the perfect technological prison for an entire society.
Keep go deeper there, John. What were you thinking?
Well, if you have social credit that determined by the state what you privileges you can and cannot have, what venues you can and cannot attend, what interest rates you get on your loan. The incentive structure is deep inside the social credit system. If you then layer on top of that messaging, basically psyops at a population scale controlled by the state, um, that's a pretty powerful 1-2 punch for overcoming individual rights.
Okay, Google plans to shutter its assistant driving mode dashboard next month. Maps.
Sorry, I don't understand.
Yeah, well, your boss is shutting your friend down. Uh, Maps for Android's car optimized user interface will remain. The Guardian says how the BBC's archive team is using tech to help digitize, catalog, and publish 23 petabytes of content, including random clips that go viral on social media. Torrent Freak has done an analysis of Pornhub's transparency reports, shows that Pornhub removed nearly 9,000 pieces of content in 2021, down 98% year over year after adding an uploader verification tool. Okay, that's why. And TechCrunch has a look at Dance Diffusion, an AI music generator aiming to overcome the limitations of other open source audio tools and legal issues with AI generated music. Okay, here we go. I can't believe how fast this shit is evolving. Stability AI, the company behind Stable Diffusion, is tackling music. Harmony AI is an organization with financial backing from Stability AI, the London-based startup behind Stable Diffusion. They released Dance Diffusion, an algorithm and set of tools that can generate clips of music by training on hundreds of hours of pre-existing songs. Quote, I started my work on audio diffusion around the same time as I started working with Stability AI. I was brought into the company due to my development work with image generating algorithm Disco Diffusion, and I quickly decided to pivot to audio research to facilitate my own learning and research and make a community that focuses on audio AI. Dance diffusion remains. So what's? Hang on. Oh, I see. Image generating algorithm was called Disco Diffusion, and now he's doing something called Dance Diffusion, which is generating audio instead of images. So the early results provide a tantalizing glimpse at what could be the future of music creation, while at the same time raising questions about the potential impact on artists. The emergence of dance diffusion comes several years after OpenAI detailed this grand experiment with music generation called Jukebox. Google's Audio LM, detailed for the first time earlier this week, shows more promise with an uncanny ability to generate piano music given a short snippet of playing, but it hasn't been open sourced. Dance Diffusion aims to overcome limitations of previous open source tools by borrowing technology from image generators. Here's the quote. In the training of diffusion model, training data such as Maestro dataset, anyway, it gets very geeky. Oh, so there's some audio examples. Here we go. For example, check out this Disco Diffusion model fine-tuned on Daft Punk. Here we go. Okay, that was weird. Or this similar transfer of the Pirates of the Caribbean theme to flute. Or this style transfer of Smash Mouth vocals to a Tetris theme. Here we go. Okay. Okay, well, then the rest of the article goes on to talk about creative conundrums and whatnot. There's one of Senegalese drumming. There's a male choir singing in the key of D. Okay. Well, let's check back in a year from now and see how far it's come. So Google's, I had not seen this Audio LM, which came out October 6th, so 4 days ago. We all missed this one. Oh no, we did read the headline, text to audio models. So you give a text input and you get an audio output. Yeah, we did talk about that briefly. Are there audio examples? Here we go. Here's an example.
Nay, nay, lording, answered Wolf. We know not how to call you lord or lady. We have lived too long in the forest, and are now. Our first impressions of people are, in 9 cases out of 10, mere spectacle reflections of the actuality of things. But they are impressions of something different and more.
Wow, so the point is those are not humans. This is the future of Siri and Google Assistant right here. They have a much more emotional, human-like voice. So here they go again, male and female.
Nay, nay, lording, answered Wolf. We know not how to call you lord or lady. We have lived too long in the forest and are now. Our first impressions of people are, in 9 cases out of 10, mere spectacle reflections of the actuality of things. But they are impressions of something different and more.
Okay, because piano. Okay, that's pretty impressive, actually. So, yeah, looking forward to a Siri who can play the piano, or Google Assistant, rather. Next topic. What do we got? BookScan, a subscription service for book sales data. Experts paint a dire picture for China's semiconductor industry and AI development after the US announced new export controls on chips and chip making tech. Indeed, not only are we banning chip makers from selling to China, we're banning chip makers from selling the machines to China, and we're even banning the people who make the suppliers for that stuff. So we're removing any chance of China, and any we're not giving them even an inch in the ability to try and make this stuff happen. So it's now become perfectly clear. This is Financial Times, that what's really going on, as I've said now for weeks, is this whole big thing is about freezing China in 2022 and preventing them from progressing technologically. As crazy as that might sound, but now it's the reports are coming in that is the and the government policies are being made that prove exactly that point. That's precisely the effort underway. Indonesia's patchwork data security approach has resulted in several large-scale data leaks. Experts say the Personal Data Protection Bill is a temporary fix. GIF, once called the file format of the internet generation, is declining in use as young users say GIFs are cringe and MP4 videos make the format outdated. A company called Give Directly and Google.org are using AI mapping and satellite imagery to find low-income hurricane survivors in Puerto Rico and Florida and send them cash payments. Critics say the California Age Appropriate Design Code Act, a digital privacy law for minors, could lead to invasive age verification methods like face scanning. Okay, those are the big boring headlines for today.
Tyler, you know that we had in Sweden a big scandal with Trafikverket's all data was outsourced to Russia just a couple of years ago. Last week we had a similar leak by Naturvårdsverket in Sweden. So now all people's data regarding if they have weapons, for example, are in the wild and are actually available to trade for on some marketplaces on darknet. We also had a huge data leak of all pupils in Sweden, and now we're talking about kids from the age of 5 until 18. All their data was also nicked last week and are also available on the almighty darknet. How strange things happens when there are conflicts in our vicinity, Johan Lund.
Okay, going into the tweets, BB what is this one you just found from Reuters about? The headline says
Which one?
Chinese chip makers shares on the stock market are falling after U.S. publishes new export rules. Shares
Oh,
in China semiconductor companies slumped on Monday following the latest U.S. crackdown on China's chipmaking industry to slow Beijing's technological progress. And then there was a second one that says Chinese regulator gives green light to fund targeting Korean chip makers.
the first one is just the echo to your to the previous article. It's obvious that China, and along with the second one, so they are trying to figure out how to continue with the semiconductor and all this, like the RAM manufacturer. And so this found, actually, this found didn't do well in the stock market, but right now, it seems like give the green light to try to collaborate with the Korean chip makers, and that's why we always see a struggle with the Korean manufacturer, the tech manufacturer here. So I would say yes, the only sanctions from the U.S. government has uh, already obviously causing problem is China, and we should continue to see how the actions the Chinese government take after this 20th uh, National Congress after on October 16th. And there are some analysts also say it's possible that China is trying to figure out their own way, but with what kind of method, still unknown. But that will be can strongly influence the future semiconductor industry as well.
Okay. Um, Next up, Eric just found this one that Twitter refuses Elon Musk's renewed $44 billion bid. Twitter is refusing to accept Elon Musk's renewed bid of $44 billion for the social media company.
I think that's news that came out the other day because I think he wanted to put a finance contingency in it, right? I mean, I don't think that's
It's
not.
because of the lawsuit. So I think that in that particular article, they're saying, well, we're not closing the deal unless you drop the lawsuit. So I think that's why it's.
Well, yeah. I know, but I think the issue with was is tied to the lawsuit is Musk now is. I mean, and I think this legitimately concerns the Twitter board that he wants a he has a finance contingency in the original deal. So this $1 billion um, payment he could make, like to just kill the deal, only relates if the financing falls through. And now there's a concern because of the stock market's been killed, interest rates are higher. That what happens if the banks can't sell the deal, or if the banks pull out, or something, or they find it. So there's a concern. I think that Musk is trying to put he's saying, yeah, I'm going to close the deal, but I need a finance contingency if all of a sudden the bank money is not there, because he doesn't want to have to like liquidate his entire Tesla position to pay for it. He wants to use some debt financing, and if the debt markets can't handle it, so I think the Twitter board's concerned that he's kind of coming up with another reason that, okay, if we give him this finance contingency, then the banks probably will pull out or something, and then he'll be able to say, okay, now I only have to pay you $1 billion termination fee. So I don't know if this is any new news. I don't think anything has happened in the last 24 hours. I think that story has been out for a few days now, I believe.
Yeah, 2 days ago. So yeah.
Okay, moving right along. Next is Spotify is reportedly dropping 11 original podcasts as it focuses on big exclusives. Okay, and Engadget is reporting that now Signal is hopping on the stories bandwagon, meaning TikTok. Even chat apps are now going to start cloning TikTok. And video Twitter, now that Twitter's adding more video like functionality to kind of do a bit more multimedia. Video Twitter urges users to reshare tweets instead of screen grabbing. Some users are reported getting prompts asking them to share a link to tweets instead of screenshots so that they drive traffic back to the source. And a new system retrofits diesel engines to run on 90% hydrogen. Engineers from Sydney have successfully converted a diesel engine to run as a hydrogen diesel hybrid engine, reducing CO2 emissions by more than 85%. That's fantastic. I'm going to bust out the clap effect for that one. That would be amazing. How much does that conversion cost? And does the cost of hydrogen on a per mile or per kilometer basis less than diesel fuel? That would be,
So
because if so, then the instant question is how many kilometers and miles before it pays itself off? The cost of the conversion.
I think it's a non-starter for cars. Unfortunately, Tyler, it doesn't really matter what tricks you play. It's good to convert some old fleet, but hydrogen is its specific energy is the same as batteries. So the mass of the gear, this is conservatively, it's the same as batteries. So the weight or the mass of the stuff is as heavy as batteries. Sorry, that's the wrong way around. The volume of the stuff is as big as batteries, so it takes up at least as much space in cars as batteries. Sure, this is converting an existing engine, but as a source in general. And then the weight is the big advantage of hydrogen, and the energy density. So the weight, the energy per unit mass is very good on hydrogen. It's 3 times better than a hydrocarbon, but there's a lot of overhead. So the place it's really going to make sense is big vehicles, trains, buses, maybe buses and coaches, maybe the smallest, where there are depots where they can charge effectively, where you can have the infrastructure. Hydrogen is very hard to contain. That's one of the challenges with it. I'll put a link in the chat. We had a whole tech newsroom on this, on hydrogen. So it'd be great for aeroplanes when they get that working, and it's great to convert some old vehicles like this, sure. Uh, but it's not a panacea. It's really hard to keep it in. It's very wasteful end to end of power. You're going to get a maximum of 40% back. So you've got solar panels making hydrogen, powering a car. You're going to get maximum 40% back, whereas an EV is going to give you over 80. So it's great for where the infrastructure could exist to pipe it there, and to have nobody with an EV is going to go and start charging, expect to leave home and go and charge. Once you've got EV and you start every day with a full tank, you're not going to do it. There's no benefit from a space taken up in the car point of view. There's a little bit of benefit from a weight point of view, tiny, but who cares? The weight of the car doesn't matter too much. But it'll make huge sense on big things like planes where weight really matters. So that would be the analysis. But there's a good link in the chat. We had a whole session about hydrogen as a fuel source.
Yeah.
But it's great if they
They,
can convert some old
if they
diesel.
can
That's cool.
solve the storage problem, if they can solve how liquid hydrogen can be stored properly, and that, again, the weight issue, space issue, yes, also good for trains and stuff. And that's why I was sharing earlier, we need to look for the future engines, not the, past technology, which is obsolete now, not going to help us in any way. Hydrogen is a good source, but they have to solve the storage problem and how to avoid the leakage.
Come Japan and check how they do it.
No, it works. It's just it doesn't make sense in the long term. Good to convert old fleets like this. This is good news. As I say, nobody with an EV is going to go over to hydrogen, because then you have to go somewhere and fill up, and no one's going to have hydrogen infrastructure at home. It just doesn't make sense on the scale of a car. It takes up more space than batteries, and it's slightly lighter, but who cares? So it just doesn't make sense. Plus, you show me somewhere in the world where you can create that hydrogen that's 100% clean. Most countries still have a huge proportion of their energy on fossil fuels production. So, for instance, in the UK, like right now, maybe we're getting, well, I can look it up on the Grid Carbon app, maybe we're getting 35% of our energy from wind, but then gas has to come in second for the next 25% because there's not enough sun right now and not enough wind. So whatever time of day in the UK you decide to use energy, you're always using gas. There's never a good time of day to turn your appliance on from a carbon dioxide point of view. No good turning it on when it looks like the grid is green, because all that will happen is that gas that is always on to some degree will just immediately turn up in response to you turning your thing on. So there's very few places they can create it green. If you can create it 100% green, then it's competition for getting the energy from A to B is the grid. And then you can send power across the grid. You can send it about one side of the states to the other for about a 20% loss. You're going to get that 20% loss just making the hydrogen in the first place. So so that's comparable, right? You either ship it across pipes, which is dangerous, difficult to contain, expensive, and so forth, or you send it through the existing grid. So and you end up with the same energy at the other end. Now, when you get the other end, you either burn the hydrogen, which you're only going to get 40%, if you're lucky, really lucky, of the energy out, or you put it in an EV and you get like 90 odd percent. So that
And
doesn't
again,
stack up.
make sure that the hydrogen source, like, is it green or blue? Because unless it's, clean hydrogen, then it just kind of defeats the purpose. If storage is a problem, getting clean hydrogen is a problem. Until these two issues are solved, I don't think it's going to work really well in terms of environment and
How
energy
many percent of the
reciprocity.
EV
I'm
on
not done.
Earth now is charged with a charger with green energy? Anybody has the
No,
data?
it's the same, Cheryl. It's the same. That's the thing. But the problem is the other end. It's
Yeah,
when
it's the
you
same,
when
right?
you when you have electricity and you put it in an EV, you get 90 something percent of that electrical energy into the motion of the car. When you do that with a hydrogen car, you're going to be lucky if you get 40%, because it's combustion. Whether it's a fuel cell or not, it's combustion. You're throwing most of the energy away on the consumption of the hydrogen. If you want to go one step back, the transport, you're comparing the solid state, super simple, almost no moving parts electricity grid to pipes trying to contain a molecule that is so small and so fast moving that it can go through metal over time. You know, your kids' helium balloons, helium's not quite the same as hydrogen, but it's similar in terms of size and molecular velocities. You've got a metal helium balloon so that the kids don't get too disappointed that their blow up, whatever shape animal they've got, is soft and floppy in the morning. And it's still soft and floppy in the morning. And that's because the helium is working through the metal lattice, right? And hydrogen has a similar problem. It's not easy to contain. It is solvable, but but it's solvable within a given tank, a given pipe, a given valve. But for a whole system to move hydrogen energy across an entire country, you're either transporting it by truck, which doesn't make a lot of sense, because now you're adding a load of transport energy, or you're putting it through pipes, which case every pipe, every valve, every junction all has to be to contain this stuff. And when you get it the other end, you're going to be no better off than you were if you had just used electricity. All you can do with it really is burn it, and when you do that, you end up with 40%, 60% loss, 40%. 40% is generous, but 40% back. So that's the concern, regardless of any of those things. So fixing containment, sure. Fixing production, sure. Still worse than electricity and batteries. The problem with batteries is the amount of pollution they potentially create. So that's what we need to compare it against.
One of the things here also is that both helium as well as hydrogen is the absolute smallest molecules and atoms there is. There is nothing less that is an atom, Johan.
Okay, here we go. WhatsApp allows some beta testers to add up to more than 1,000 users to a group. And Saudamini found this one. North Korea's crypto hackers are paving the road to nuclear Armageddon. North Korea has quietly become a cryptocurrency superpower. It has stolen billions in Bitcoin and Ether and is funneling profits to its nuclear weapons program. And how Elon Musk caught Tesla employee who leaked data, named Vaibhav Balgar, became a well-known Twitter follower of Elon Musk after the Tesla CEO responded to his tweet about how the electric car maker caught an employee. Okay, I don't necessarily want to read that article. Saudamini, is she on stage? Or does anyone know how he caught the employee who leaked the information? I just tweeted it if somebody wants to look it up and then let us know. Amazon to invest over $1 billion in European electric van and truck fleet. over the next 5 years. Low emission package hubs around Europe. And they probably don't have a choice. Europe's probably going to force that on them. Also about Elon Musk. Elon Musk slammed for suggesting Taiwan be made a special zone of China. Like make some sort of concession to avoid a invasion, so to speak. And he's getting a lot of blowback for that tweet.
Yeah, like Shanghai has a special economic zone designation, which kind of allows people to access things that other folks can't, like Facebook and other American services that are usually blocked. So there's various ways of constructing that. So I think because the example already exists, it would be less harmful than a war, definitely.
It's got roasted in Taiwan and got prayed in China. But some said because it has this Shanghai factory, so the last two tweets got controversial. Is about the tweets to Ukraine and got reaction from Zelensky as well. And this one is, I'm not sure. It's just like Tyler said, being stupid or being evil. Because it's obvious from what happened in Hong Kong, there is no one's gonna believe that a special zone will do this peaceful task as well in the end. So there are some people believe Musk is like forced to do some statement because this Shanghai factories, because at any point and at any time his factory can be shut down due using the excuse of zero COVID or any kind of test for COVID. So yeah, we'll see.
Okay. Here we go. A bunch more. Now Ken, believe it or not, I finally found your tweets today. It's because you're apparently sharing them shortly after the previous tech news ended. So it's you're the last in my chronological list here, reverse chronological. Okay, so running right along here, I've got a dozen here to go through real quickly. Some really good ones here. Okay. In no particular order. Saudamini found this one. An Apple Watch detected a woman's pregnancy. Clinical tests confirm. The watch was reportedly detected a woman's pregnancy even before clinical tests, based on, I guess she missed her period and her uh, body temperature increased and things of that sort. And then,
That's actually quite controversial in terms of privacy, because
yeah,
combine that with some of the backdoor tools that exist, and wow, yikes.
Instagram and Twitter said to have restricted Kanye West's accounts. They have been locked due to violation of the social media platform's policies, where he if it's what I think it is, and I'm sure it is, it's his recent tweets about DEF CON 3, not DEF CON, DEF CON. And one must wonder if that was intentional or an actual mistake. But I imagine that it seems, I would assume it was Kanye intelligently crafted that to do exactly what has happened. And then apparently he came back, and Elon Musk, of all people, welcomed him back, strangely. But he was saying he's going DEF CON 3 on Jews, basically. And his previous tweet gives some kind of hint as to what was on his mind when he says, do you all know who created cancel culture? And then he says, he's going DEF CON 3 on Jews and how they can stop people who, go against their big plans. And I think it's because of the word DEFCON 3. Had he not used the word DEFCON 3 and used the word DEFCON 3, I wonder if he would have been suspended from both of those apps. But maybe he intentionally did that to. He seems to know how to play the media game.
I'm not a fan, but he just proved his point,
Yeah,
and I'm
there's
definitely not a fan.
yeah. He's saying that the whole point of yeah, a lot of people commented on that of like, well, he just by you silencing him improves his own point, and that in itself is kind of the art of Kanye West beyond his music career.
The one of the heads of a major EFT before the 20 or right after the 2016 election made a recommendation to the media, and actually is a quality recommendation for some of us. And someone asked him how to manage the last U.S. president, and he said, "Ignore him, then he'll self implode." And that is pretty much a similar message that we should use for Kanye and some of these other people, because they thrive on, they just get bigger on stuff like this. Just ignore them.
Okay. Mm, the next is Thomas Tong found about the DJI drone ban. World's largest drone manufacturer, DJI, has now been blacklisted, as more and more Chinese companies will continue to get blacklisted. Ken found this one, that Las Vegas driverless car rental service raises $5 million, called Halo Car. And there's now the Pixel 7 Pro was just released a few days ago, 4 days ago, and now we're seeing the first reviews and batches of actual real image examples, which I just retweeted to the Tech News Twitter account, and I have to say these photos look fantastic. I'm just looking at skylines of New York City. Yeah, the fantastic shots. Very cool. What else is there? I'm just looking at all these. Oh, and San Francisco. And it's they're commenting on how good the zoom is. But it's a AI augmented zoom, basically. Poppy found something called Ashalim, one of the tallest structures in Israel, and until recently, the tallest solar power plant in the world, and it supplies 121 megawatts of clean, renewable energy. And there's a story in the New York Times all about it. And Ken found a Washington Post article. Chicago scientists are testing an unhackable quantum internet in their basement closet. The quantum internet aims to use nature's smallest particles to share information in a manner that can't be hacked, and someday to link new quantum computers, which will be amazing. If you think AI is interesting now, wait till we see the convergence of AI and quantum computers into a quantum internet. Oh boy. And that's where you have to worry about AIs becoming superhuman and godlike in a weekend. Uh, if we ever get to that point, and that's why Elon used to rant endlessly about that one. And Ken found this one from the Wall Street Journal, that the FTC has pared back its lawsuit targeting Meta's platform's bid to acquire a virtual reality company. Yeah, uh, Facebook isn't the big behemoth it used to be. And Eric found this video of an interview. It looks like a brief interview of Elon Musk, and it was tweeted out. It's about Elon's strategy for buying Twitter, why he's buying Twitter. So let's have a little listen. Payments, you do everything. It's like, yeah, I've been working. So the question is, why are you buying Twitter? Here we go. I have been working on an edit button for a year. Well, it's a tricky situation. Edit's incredibly complex. Yes, one indeed. I mean, we don't even have an app that's as good as WeChat in China. Like in China, you like live on WeChat basically. Yeah, it's like everyone's like you live on WeChat, you do payments, you do everything. It's like it's great. Basically, WeChat's kick ass, and we don't have anything like WeChat outside of China. So I was like, my idea would be like, how about if we just copy WeChat? Hey, copy them. Buy Twitter, copies WeChat. Yeah, pretty much. Yes. So the interviewer says, "Oh, so you buy Twitter and then copy WeChat?" And he says, "Yes." And I remember there was some tech bro who came in here into Tech News the day it was rumored that Elon might buy Twitter, and he gave some interesting reason as to why he might buy Twitter, and he said he would probably turn it into a WeChat clone. Does anyone else remember this?
Cash.
Vaguely familiar, vaguely, very vague.
Can you
Yeah,
tell
but I
us
think,
tomorrow's lottery number?
but but Tyler, I think after all this saga, he probably regretted because now he's being forced to buy Twitter, and probably he realized that it's easier to build one from scratch.
Or now it's like, hey, now we got to make this work like WeChat. So everyone who's listening, we're trying to make WeChat come on board. Like even I myself with my company, we're looking to release some hardware, and I'm like, hey, this is a different place to offer something like a service or product. So I bet there's a lot of people who would be willing to go onto the platform and sell their products there. So I think it's just a matter of seeing how many sellers and creators are willing to do that. And I think there's quite a few.
Does anybody actually believe what Elon Musk is saying? Really? How many times has been saying, how many different things have been saying about Twitter and buying and backing out, and how many people were supporting him not buying it, and how many bots there is, and now he is saying, oh yeah, he's gonna buy it. I'm really confused.
Yeah, so
What's in
He's
his
Wesley,
head?
definitely
Wesley, you're
testing the
saying,
water.
right? Don't take what he said too seriously, right? Just take it with a
Yeah,
big
I
grain of salt.
think
Absolutely. I would never take anything seriously about him. I think he really is a very good marketer. Like Trump, being on the news, no matter what, bad or good, is a good thing. So he just says things, whatever comes to his head. It may not necessarily mean that's what he's going to do.
Okay, Ken found this one. He retweeted a tweet from David Marcus, who used to run Facebook Messenger, and before that he was at PayPal. And PayPal updated its terms of service such that it can now fine and take $2,500 from a PayPal user if they um, go against what PayPal's kind of ethics and morals. And so this is kind of a big story at the moment. Um, New PayPal policy lets company pull $2,500 from users' accounts if they promote misinformation. And that, of course, that means PayPal will then be deciding what is misinformation. Why should a payments company be dealing with that? Why, maybe it's to protect fraud, and let's hope it's that. And let's see who ends up being the first to fall victim to this. And let's hope they were scamming people. And then if it turns out to be that, I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt. And let's see who ends up being penalized with this and for what. And does it seem unfair or not?
Hey Tyler, when was that article? Because there's been some rooms on Clubhouse, so don't quote me on this, but someone had mentioned somewhere, I think I heard this yesterday, that it happened to a couple individuals and then they went back in and they actually took this clause back out, PayPal did. So wondering, was this article from today or is it a couple days old? Because I think this could have changed at this point.
It's been going on for a couple days. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe more to come on that one. Yeah, because I think somebody said yesterday it got out leaked. There was this huge outrage, and PayPal's backpedaling. So maybe more to come on this. I'll see too if I could find any additional info on that one because I did. Because who knows what happens on Clubhouse, right? Just I heard something else as of yesterday, so I was just curious.
Users have a lot of options in the payment space. So PayPal has a lot of competitors, and you have a lot of people who just on moral grounds are deleting their accounts, and you have some very popular kind of American right wing people saying delete your PayPal account, and people are deleting their PayPal account just on the moral ethical issue of being moderated for their what they say or do or whatever. So I may have found one. Disney plans to acquire the largest NFT collection, and Karam also found the article. The U.S. aims to hobble China's chip industry with sweeping new export rules. We already went over that. And Ken found one, the David Marcus one, where David Marcus tweeted out, because he used to work at PayPal. He says, "It's hard for me to openly criticize a company I used to love and gave so much to, but PayPal's new terms goes against everything I believe in. A private company now gets to decide to take your money if you say something they disagree with," and he doesn't like that at all. And the next one is from May. It says Dow Jones is now officially more volatile than Bitcoin. Bitcoin volatility appears to cool down compared to the wider markets. Evan found this one that it's lonely in the metaverse. Decentraland's 38 daily active users. Uh, 38
I wrote.
daily active users. Yeah, makes it
Oh no,
very lonely.
I just wrote an article. It's 19 now. I just wrote an article about that. The about the metaverse and the fact that for the metaverse to be functional, the token price would be completely like neutral relative to the number of people visiting the space and possibly inversely related, right? So if the token price, like the price of transacting goods on a space is low, then more people will want to go on that space, right? Especially if they hold that token. And then if it increases, there's less activity. But generally speaking, if you're going to be in a metaverse, you're going to be in a metaverse. And so the interesting statistics are just that, like the space that has been the most populated or has ever reached a peak is it's not even 7,000 at one time in Sandbox. And then so Decentraland, there was a report from two different sources that their Discord is just almost dead. And there's only 19 active users now. Decentraland published a retort like, no, here's our monthly active users, etc. But if you go in there, there's not a lot happening right now. Now it could be that it's these the initial main metaverses. People are just kind of getting there, like nothing significant enough has happened with them, so people are moving towards the ones that have more active management that aren't decentralized. So we'll see how that works. But I think that this is one of those things where people are relating the value of this metaverse to the price of the coin that is transacted in the metaverse. And that means that the metaverse itself isn't like self-sufficient. It means that people only like it because they think it'll make it money, right? Not because it's actually functional and valuable independently.
Okay. Thomas Tong found this one. South Korea accidentally hit its own base with a missile while warning the North. And last but not least,
Wait, who?
PTO.
I'm sorry. Who hit with a missile?
South Korea.
South Korea
PTO
hit someone with a missile?
They
themselves.
launched after the North Korea launched their missile test, but accidentally they like hit their own land. So somehow it's hilarious. Yeah,
Accidentally on purpose. Sorry.
accidentally. I think it's accidental.
So the last tweet for today, PT Yoder found this one, that Modern Warfare 2, a very popular video game, has a no prepaid phone number requirement, meaning you must register with a phone number that's not a prepaid phone number, with like a real account, with like an annual subscription or monthly plan or whatever.
Oh,
And
that's interesting to combat cheating, yeah?
to come to no, for identity purposes, as a way to combat toxicity and abuse. So you're more prepaid phones are not allowed. So there you
Wow.
go.
Wow, that's pretty good.
Well,
And
but that's not right. I mean, there's a lot of people who play who can't afford a regular phone.
Hmm.
There we go. We will
Hey,
do it
Event has a
again.
room at the
oh,
top
You
of the
guys
Tyler,
want
I
to
hour,
go?
think
You
unless
guys
he
what
want
wants to
Gila
start it
did.
now. So I've already pinned on top.
to go?
Sorry, Tyler, I
Thanks,
found
Gerald. Yeah,